Happy International Women's Day, everybody. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. And it's going to take a couple of minutes, I think, for people to spot that we're live, to find the broadcast and come and join us. So if you're on and you're here already, then do say hello. We're broadcasting live to a number of locations today. So I think we're live on Facebook in a couple of different places. Hey, hey, hey. Hello, gorgeous. Nice to see you. Yes, we're live on Facebook in a couple of places. I'm hoping we're also live on LinkedIn. I'm not too sure what will happen with the LinkedIn comments. I'm going to be a little bit cheeky and I'm just going to check on my phone and see what it's doing. Because, yeah, that could be interesting, couldn't it? Anyway, we'll catch up with that in a bit. So thank you for coming and joining me. If you're here and you are live today, it's such a lovely day, International Women's Day. It really is a fabulous day of celebration of all things female, feminine, womanly, and this year's theme being all centered around breaking gender bias. Really interesting, actually. Lots and lots of stuff popping up on my social media feed this morning, reminding me of 2 years ago today, being on the stage of We'll Manifest, my lifestyle and empowerment show for women. And we'll be doing it again this year. I've actually been out this morning. This is hot off the press news, actually. I've actually been out this morning going around our brand new venue. So it's going to be an actual festival this year. Yes, glamping, wellies, all of that good stuff. Yeah, Louisa, 2 years ago for you, when it all began, when we first met. So yes, thank you for coming and joining me for this masterclass today, this quick lunchtime masterclass, whistle stop tour, high intensity, loads of value. You can't wait. Too exciting, isn't it? It's all too exciting. Specifically today, I want to share some content around how we can all start to break gender bias, because actually it's for everybody to do. So I'm just going to fetch up some slides. I'm going to bang these into the stream. Let me see if I can get me on with you. There we go, at the same time, so that we can see each other. So today, yes, the workshop that I want to share with you is all around why breaking the gender bias, so break the bias, is the theme for this year's International Women's Day. Why breaking this gender bias is the key to unlocking what you truly desire. So talk to me, get involved with me in the chat. I can keep my eye on what everybody's saying. Hi, Ruth. Nice to see you. So yes, do say hello. Let me know that you're here. I'd love to know what you're up to this International Women's Day. What are you celebrating today? But yeah, ask away, ask me questions, get involved. I love it when we can talk. I'm not sure who this is because you haven't let StreamYard know who you are, but hello, it's nice to see you. I'll catch up with some of the comments as we go through the session. So yes, definitely about gender bias today, but linked to the work that I do with women. So as an assertiveness coach for women, I spend a lot of my time helping women to figure out what they want, shamelessly declare it to the world, and then go out and get it and make it happen. Actually, I can see the number of you that are on. Do me a favor while you're here. Give this a share on your social media right now. So just hit that share button and share it around your network. Let's see if we can get loads and loads of women to come on and join us this lunchtime for a quick bit of learning. Whoop, whoop. There you go. There's all of the hashtags for today too. Thanks, Ruth. So without further ado, let me tell you what I'm going to be talking about in this lunchtime session today. So first off, I'm going to start with being really clear, giving you some clarity around what gender bias actually is. Because you know what? Even though I've worked in the field of feminism, supporting women for many, many years, I learned a lot when I really started to research what gender bias really is. So I'm going to share a little bit of that with you today. Also going to talk about how this often invisible bias, it's not necessarily a conscious bias, but how this often invisible bias does affect all of our behaviour and how you can go about raising your levels of self-awareness around that today. We're also going to talk about action, right? This is always about action. what are the actions that we can all take to break that bias? And naturally, I want to round off today's session with how you can connect with your true identity as a woman and get that key out, unlock what you truly desire, so you can break free of some of the biases that surround you and that cause you to behave in the way that you do behave. Because ultimately, I'm in the business of helping women to live the happy, fulfilling, and successful life that we all bloody well deserve. So let me know in the chat what that means to you, what you'd like to get out of that, if that raises any immediate questions for you that you would like me to answer, because by all means I will. So let's get this show on the road. Whoa! Right, just look at that, okay? So what I'm showing to you right now is just how many cognitive biases that exist. Now, I'm not going to ask you to count them all. I think there's approximately 188 cognitive biases that exist. All right, that's a lot. And the majority of these are playing out for us day in, day out, on the whole, generally in an unconscious way. We are not conscious that all of these biases are playing out for us. You know, it's prevalent in every single aspect of our lives. You know, our brains are hardwired to categorize things. Everything that we kind of encounter, it categorizes all of those things to try and make sense, really. That's its job. It's trying to make sense of kind of the complicated world that we live in these days. It's more complicated than ever. However, whilst they're there to serve a purpose for us, biases can cause us to form prejudices, right? Which is why we're talking about gender bias today. It does cause us to form those against others, which that's what causes inequalities to exist. You know, they start to form between very, very different demographics of people. So, you know, this is all about the human brain, right? And the human brain, I was just going to say, hey, Nick, nice to see you. And Ellie saying, geez, it took you an age to get in and join us. Always does for you, Ellie, doesn't it? You always have a little bit of a journey, let's say, a bit of a challenge to get in. So, human brain, right? So capable of incredible things, right? But it's also can be really flawed at times. You know, science like this has shown that, you know, we tend to make lots of what we would call mental mistakes, right? These cognitive biases, because they affect our thinking, and therefore affecting our thinking leads on to affecting our actions. You know, what they do is they cause us to kind of extrapolate information from the wrong sources, unhelpful sources, in a way really that, see, as human beings, we're conditioned to like to be right, okay? So we extrapolate information that will confirm our existing beliefs, yeah? We want to tell ourselves that, oh, good, we believe that thing, see, we're right, yeah? Or we even distort events. We don't, you know, we fail to remember events in the way that they actually happened. And then when this stuff happens, we start to create shortcuts, okay? We create different emotional and moral motivations. We distort the way that we store and retrieve memories. And there's a whole bunch of social influence involved in that. So just know, right, as we get into this. Now, obviously, you can't read anything on that slide. And it's not intended for you to read anything on there. It's to show you that 188 different biases are potentially playing out for you all of the time, right? Majority of those are quite unconscious. So let's talk specifically about gender bias then. So what is gender bias? Okay, well, you can see here on the screen, I'll let you have a little read through that yourself, but it basically is the tendency to prefer one gender over the other. It's a form of mostly unconscious bias. So, and that's important, right? Because it's not deliberate. It's not a conscious choice that most of us make. It's often unconscious, or you might term that an implicit bias, you know, which it occurs when we unconsciously attribute certain attitudes, certain stereotypes to a particular group of people or another person. And that then starts to affect our behaviour and how we understand and engage with other people. You know, the classic really is girls and boys toys, isn't it? You know, when you think stereotypically, all right, you might want to go back to the 80s, the 90s, maybe even the 70s. But, you know, those toys, the blue things for boys, the football, the cars, the dinosaurs for the boys, the pink stuff, the dollies, the dressing up, all of that for the girls. You know, what that was doing is that was our tools for socialization, right? That's the stuff that encouraged the boys to run around outside and to take risks by pretending to be Transformers, you know, Action Man, whatever it was. You know, meanwhile, girls were focused more on being pretty, becoming princesses, taking care of other people because we were playing with baby dolls or baking cakes in the oven. Okay. You know, so all of that socialization shapes gender bias. So know that this is not overnight stuff. This is deeply ingrained for most of us who are probably in our 40s now, from when we were first born and small people. So, you know, so there's a lot of stuff there that we're bringing with us from across the ages that plays out for us today. You know, and actually countless studies have demonstrated that the way kids are socialized continues now to impact women as adults. All of that good girl conditioning is kind of how we learn to adopt the behaviors and the attitudes that have become expected of women. I love this lady, Tara Moore. You know, a quote, she shared this on Twitter. She's an expert on women's leadership and well-being. And I think it sums it up nicely. You know, be nice, be considerate of others, don't rock the boat, and be likable. You know, and I think that rings true actually for many women around how we were socialized, and especially how our mums, aunties were socialized at the time in order to grow up. You know, so how we've socialized our children so far, that's what's going to play out for them in their adult life, girls and boys, and gender fluid. We've got more than girls and boys to contend with now. You know, we've got trans individuals, non-binary. All of that now matters and actually makes it even more important. It's not just blue things for boys and pink things for girls. Gender has become so much more fluid that it's put a lot more in the mix. So, let's take a look at a few statistics, more than a few. There's quite a lot on that slide. I'm not going to read them all out to you, okay? But, you know, after generations of kind of being in charge, I guess, as the dominant power group, you know, white men of privilege, they were in a position to kind of set up the structure of things like modern offices and, you know, things that were based on the needs and the preferences of other men just like them, you know, most of whom at that point had wives raising the children, picking up the dry cleaning, doing the ironing, all of those kinds of things. You know, it's a pattern that both makes it harder for women to be successful, and it's continued to elevate men into positions of power. You know, so regardless of your gender, and actually this is really important, you know, regardless of your gender, your subconscious, my subconscious, that's telling me about how maybe a leader or a successful professional is supposed to look and behave. You know, still many people attribute that subconsciously, it's not a conscious thing, like a man. You know, and as much as we may try to be kind of conscientious, we don't actually have control over how our subconscious is processing information. I actually find that really scary and a little bit frightening that, you know, because it's in my subconscious, I haven't actually got a lot of control over what's going on. And, this pattern of unconscious bias against women has major consequences in how we're treated, specifically at work. And gender bias does tend to play out a lot at work. Unlike men, women are often evaluated on our achievements rather than our potential. That translates into, if you've got a group of people on a hiring committee together, deciding that sometimes a female employee, they need a bit more experience before they advance in their career, whilst, the next guy along, well, they've demonstrated leadership potential and they've earned the new role. It's things like that people just really aren't aware of. There's no malice, there's no crappy intent, none of that is involved, but actually we don't even realize that it's playing out in our behavior. And it actually gets worse. Those challenges are particularly acute if you're a woman of color. So if you're a Black woman, you face even more additional biases in that way. That, Black women are consistently actually shown to be more ambitious than their white peers, than somebody like me, but actually are more likely to feel stalled in their career, totally more stalled in their career. And, you think about it, I'm sure many of you have come across an example where when a woman makes a mistake, it's more likely to be noticed, it's more likely to be remembered for longer. And, and actually for a Black woman, she's judged even more harshly for that error. Hi, Rachel. Yeah, too true, especially for those of you that are working in a male-dominated arena, definitely. God, when you think about it, if women aren't, is it right? What it is for me is it's this thing we call a double bind. I don't know if you've heard of this term of a double bind. Much of what I've just talked about is a result of the double bind that women face. We need to demonstrate competence at work, but kind of unlike men, we also need to come across as likable in order to be influential. I don't know if any of you have ever faced that kind of challenge. I know I have. Professional success often requires qualities that are like traditionally associated, I'll say, with masculinity, okay? Because they're not specific to just men, but actually professional success often associated with masculinity. If we think about decisiveness, confidence, competence, achievement, assertiveness, all of those kind of things. But for women to achieve influence, they also need to be seen as sufficiently feminine or warm, trustworthy, friendly, likable. Because actually, when women aren't warm, we're often seen as bitchy and difficult. But then if we're only seen as warm, we're not taken seriously. So it's almost like, you can't win in some situations. I've had people women say to me, the last thing these days that I want to be seen as in work is nice. Warmth, it's an important tool for efficacy for women, but only in combination with competence. The double bind means that it can be so difficult for women to be able to achieve both. It's there's lots of ways to counteract some of this bullshit, but it's clear that, we shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to think about how we counteract some of that stuff. You only have to look at some article on women's empowerment, and you'll come across many a subtext that women's challenges in the workplace are somehow our own fault. Many operate under the kind of assumption that issues of bias and gender inequality are, they're ours to fix by leaning in. Now, I can sign up to a degree of that, right? As somebody who works with women to get them to be more accountable for their own selves in life, you know what? I do that with women. But, on its own, by itself, that's a seriously reductive view. There are systemic issues that do need to be addressed. And that requires a bit more of a multifaceted approach. There's not one silver bullet. It's not down to women entirely on their own to do something about this. That can be really hard work, particularly since we can't choose sometimes the way that the system treats us in the short term. However, we can choose the way that we respond in these situations. I know affecting social change is never an overnight endeavor. It's never an overnight success, but dealing with it does require lots of awareness and a massive dose of moxie, right? A huge, heavy dose of moxie, of courage, of standing up for oneself. So, we've got a lot to deal with. I'm sure that's given you an opportunity to look at some of those statistics on the screen. And actually, the one for me is the bottom one that stands out massively, is that women do 3 times as much unpaid work as men, and the double shift is a fact of life for millions of women. What I mean by that is we do a day's job in the career and then we do another full-time job in running the home. Huge amount. So big statistics. But actually, what constitutes gender bias? Loads of things. Most of these will resonate with you. Again, I'll allow you to kind of look at those yourself and read through them in your own time. But actually, there's a couple of real examples that I want to share with you that have happened for me. One of them was a couple of weeks ago. I wrote a bit of a blog on this actually about I was away with work and needed to park in a car park, an underground car park of a hotel. I was working away with some guys. The guys had managed to bag themselves a car park in the nice, spacious outdoor car park. But you know what? That's fine. They got there before me, not a problem. But they came into the underground car park to watch me park. And I picked a space. And one guy said to me, "You're going to get that in there?" And I was like, "Yeah. What? Of course I'll get it in there." There was a big post, actually, like a big pillar that was in the way of the space. So I kind of had to swing the car round this pillar to get into the space. But there was another car on the side, so I had to be really, really careful. Was also driving a hire car, so it wasn't my own vehicle. And 3 guys stood there and watched me do this. And I was like, fine, whatever, because I know I'm a shit up parker, right? I can do good parking, if I do say so myself. And anyway, gets out the car. I parked it, right? Thumbs up, parked it in a wanna, straight in. I was quite impressed with myself, actually. But as we walked into the hotel, one of the guys said to me, "I'm both surprised and impressed at your car parking." Then I was like, "Really? Why? Why are you surprised?" And he went, "Well, because you're a woman." I was like, "Well, learn your lesson based on that then, because actually my parking ability has nothing to do with the fact that I am a woman." However, equally, another story was gender bias that I demonstrated. I was in a food serving area in a queue with my tray, waiting to get my breakfast one morning a couple of weeks ago. And I said to my colleague, I was like, "Do I need to pay the lady on the till when I've got my food, or is it all chalked up in what we've paid for the venue?" And when I looked, the person on the till was not a lady, it was a man. So just look at that, how unconsciously that played out for me, in the way that I had made the assumption that it was a lady on the till, when actually it wasn't, it was a guy. I have included one bloke, even though we're talking about women, it's International Women's Day, and we're talking about gender bias towards women. I have included one at the bottom there specifically about men, that actually men who are not aggressive and or assertive often get labelled as unmanly and likely gay, right? So it goes both ways is what I'm saying here. It does go both ways. You may also be familiar with this term, smashing the glass ceiling, and the glass ceiling is a product of gender bias. A major result of these biases playing out has contributed to the creation of this glass ceiling. Now, all right, it's a metaphor, but it's a metaphor for the evident but often intangible hierarchical impediment that prevents other minorities and women from achieving elevated professional success. You know, it often gets referred to in organisations as there's a boys' club mentality at the top in senior leadership. And the sad thing is that often women who are bold enough, brave enough, confident enough to push forward, to smash through this ceiling, to sit down at that table and own that place at the table, often end up very, very isolated. And they end up being labelled by both the boys in this boys' club and other women around them in the organisation as the alpha female bitch from hell. You know, so you can see there as it is lose-lose often for a woman who would love to accelerate her career, who has got some big ambitions, who has got shed loads of talent and capability, and you know, no, she's damned if she does and she's damned if she doesn't. Okay, Nick saying, yeah, men can be strategic, but women can often get labelled as calculating. Yeah, so all of these kinds of examples are part of the problem. So in the Global International Women's Day group had some resources actually on their website that had some great kind of interactive exercises that you can do with your team, actually. And there were some fantastic quiz questions that came out. And so from their research, I've just picked three of them out, three of them that startled me and that I wanted to share. So one of the pieces of data in their research asked the question around how many times more often do men interrupt women than other men? It feels like a bit of a riddle, that, doesn't it? How many times more often do men interrupt women than other men? Don't know, put your answers in the chat if you fancy. How many more times? I'm going to hang on a sec before I click the button and show you the answer to see what you put in there. Oh, Nick's gone 10. Yeah. Any more? How many times more often do men interrupt women than other men? I'm going to go for the answer. It's not quite 10, but it's 3 times more often. That's plenty, isn't it? Absolutely plenty. Louisa had gone 50% more. Ellie, you were closest actually with a 4. Thank you. Next question. In a study of performance reviews, what percentage of women received negative feedback on their personal style, such as you can sometimes be a bit abrasive or too emotional? And what percentage of men received that same type of feedback? So give me a percentage for women and a percentage of men. So in a study of performance reviews, what percentage of women received negative feedback that was around their personal style, i.e. you can sometimes be a bit abrasive or too emotional? And in comparison, what percentage of men received the same type of feedback? Sarah Jane saying 100% of the time for me at work. Oh, right, great stuff. Nicola is going for 34% of women, 6% of men. Sarah Jane, 80% for women, 20% for men. Ellie's going in at 35% for women, 5% for men. Oh, I love this. This is really exciting. Oh, here we go. Louisa's on 70-30. Cool. Here's the answer. Could not believe this. 66% of women, just 1% of men. Okay. That's really interesting, isn't it? This is data from the Global International Women's Day group. Okay. Last question. What percentage of Black women have never had an informal interaction with a senior leader at their company? Look at this. Yeah. Wow. No way. No way. Interesting, isn't it? So this question number 3, what percentage of Black women have never had an informal interaction with a senior leader at their company? Yeah, Louisa, truly shocking. But yeah, it's not surprising, is it? Yeah. So, hi Sheila, 70 women, 30 men. I guess that's for the other question. Yeah. So you were really close with your women. It was 66% for women, but only 1% for men. So Nicola, for this question, you're saying 79%. SJ, you're saying 80%. Any more for any more? The answer is 59. 59% of Black women never had an informal interaction with a senior leader. You're on the money today, Louisa. Really, really close. Interesting, isn't it? Right. So, you know what? Startling statistics. But here's the thing. Whose problem is it? Well, listen, let's be clear about this. This is not a women's problem. But at the same time, this is not a problem with men. It's a societal problem that we all have to play a part in, regardless of our gender, whether we're male, whether we're female, whether we're trans, whether we're non-binary. It really doesn't matter. Because here's the thing, right? A number of studies, but one that stood out for me was a piece of research by Forbes. I think the UN have also done a big piece of research, the UN, around gender bias, so bias towards women by men and bias towards women by women. And women were just as, and in fact, in some studies, more than, women were more biased towards women than men were, right? I know that might be like, hang on a minute, I'm not sure that computes. Women are more biased towards women than men are. Okay, so this isn't a finger pointy exercise at blokes. All right, this is a, guess what? Do you know what? Most of these biases are subconscious. Okay, we didn't choose them, we didn't decide them. They were planted in our heads when we were small people because we were conditioned by the society that we grew up in. All right, that takes a lot of time to unpick and undo. Yeah. So Louisa's saying, and that in itself is the problem, isn't it? Yeah. Women by women. Now, I say that, I want you to try and, I know it's sad but true, but I want you to try and take the blame and the fault out of this because it's subconscious and we almost haven't chosen it. It's just how we've societally been conditioned. We don't know we're doing it. There's actually a test you can take, right? So Harvard Business School, if you Google Harvard implicit bias test, take the test, right? I came across it in a Radio 4 article by, I've forgotten the lady's name. Afterwards, I'll try and put the details in the chat about this. But it's, I took the test and I couldn't believe how much female gender bias came out in my results of the test when I'm an active feminist, and that's what I do for work. So actually, I'm not going to use that as judgment. I don't need to judge myself as a bad person or a good person because I'm gender biased. But what I am going to do is be aware of it. Yeah, it's not my fault that it exists. It's not your fault. It's not men's fault. It's nobody's fault. But let's not use that as an excuse to not act. It's just there. We don't need to draw meaning from it, but let's choose to change it. So Louise saying, it makes me sad how many women recoil at the idea of being a feminist. You know, it's a shame. It'd be nice if it didn't need to exist at all, wouldn't it? But it does. Yeah. It's like the whole men take the bin out. Yeah. We do it ourselves unconditionally. Yeah, you're on your own. You have no choice. It's not about sameness, right? Equality is different to sameness. Men and women are different, and that's okay. Yeah, we have different strengths. We bring different things to the party. You know, we have different qualities about us, but we should have access to the same opportunity as each other. So I know I'll get a bit soapboxy over that, but please, please know that this is not a finger pointy exercise at men. All right. You also got to look at the micro messages in society, you know, media, in particular, social media, Instagram, right? So much going on there in terms of the micro messaging that is feeding some of those gender biases that exist. Just look at this one, right? Pick out the gender bias in this. This was, an advertisement for COVID, right? You couldn't get more recent than this. 4 households there. You have a look what's going on in each of them and the roles that women are playing in each of them. Okay, so the micro messages that we're surrounded by really aren't helping us. So what can we do about this? I did mention in the objectives for this session is I would share how we can raise our levels of self-awareness. All right, 4 things for me: be present, be educated, be curious, be conscious. Being present is all about noticing more. Be more in the moment and notice more what happens. When we notice more, then it raises our conscious awareness. So we will start to clock more of the messages around us and think, oh, that message is quite gender biased. I'm going to not buy into that one. Yeah. Be educated. Well, do you know what? You've done a bit of that by being here today. Educating ourselves about what gender bias is, where it shows up, examples of it. Being educated means that we get it, we understand it, and then we know what we can do about it. Being curious is an interesting one. The world's not that curious, People aren't curious. People just like to be righteous, really. So being curious is about questioning things more. It's about questioning people's attitudes, people's comments. And I don't mean to challenge them. So even if you notice somebody saying something that is quite gender biased, it's not to jump all over it and have a go at them. It's more to be genuinely curious to understand their perspective. What's driving that kind of behavior? How do they see the world? And yes, maybe you can influence some of that, but we can do that in a really kind, compassionate, inclusive way without being like, oh, you're gender biased. You can't be gender biased. That would make things worse, wouldn't it? And it's about being conscious. Now, for me, the conscious piece is there's another bias, right, called social desirability bias. And social desirability is our desire to be accepted socially. So what that means is we're not all saying what we really think. So even when we take tests or we participate in a survey, they know when they run the surveys about gender bias that gender bias is worse than what the survey says it is, because social desirability bias means we don't all say what we're actually really thinking and what we believe deep down. And what's important about being conscious? That we don't just walk past things anymore. Maybe if we notice gender bias existing in a conversation or a situation that we're nothing to do with, instead of going, oh, well, that's nothing to do with me, we speak up about that stuff, right? But we speak up about it with kindness and with compassion. Interesting one, yeah. All the women in the team you work in, Ellie, carried the full childcare burden during lockdown. That happened for a lot of women, We carry the emotional and mental load of the home in many, many family setups. It's an interesting one, isn't it? So self-awareness is key. So you get yourself into trouble all the time speaking up. What kind of trouble? Do you know what, actually? When I get into trouble for speaking up, now I think that says more about them than it does about me. That if it causes a bit of conflict or a few feathers being ruffled, then that's because people really know. That's them just getting all unnerved and unsettled with themselves because they really know that we did the right thing. So I leave them with it. I hand the ball of uncomfortableness to them and think, metaphorically, do you know what? You can hold the uncomfortable ball on that, not me. I've done the right thing. So I'm cool with that. And actually, the more of us that do it, the more accepted it will become. Which actually brings me on to this point. What action can we take? Yay, good. I'm glad you're on the same page with me. Knew you would be. It's a principle that I operate by. Small change, big difference. Listen, this is not about us turning ourselves upside down, inside out, and back to front. Okay? If everybody made one small change, it would make a massive difference. This is about culture. This is about our societal culture. Culture only changes when individual people decide to do something different. And actually, culture is made up of stories, the stories that we tell. Now, we've got a lot of historical stories that are playing out today, traditional, outdated stories about the roles that women play, right? So our job, change the stories, change the culture. So our job is to create new stories and share those stories and get those stories to go viral of gender fluidity. So it is about embracing gender fluidity. It's about being accountable, speaking up for someone in the moment. It's about asking questions, right? Being curious. And it's about advocating for change, and that's each and every one of us, man, woman, whatever you identify as, okay? That's what matters. So, in the context of the work that I do every day with the women that I help to become more assertive, to step into their power, to figure out what they truly, deeply desire, and go out and get it. How is some of this, how is breaking gender bias the key to unlocking what you truly desire? Well, do you know what? If we break free of the bias and the stereotypes, and we stop conforming to the expectations that were placed on us by other people, maybe our mom, our dad, our teachers, other people that we were surrounded by, if we quit looking around us to see what everyone else is doing, and we no longer use that as our compass to think, oh, well, all the women over here are doing this, I better keep up with the Joneses and do that. Actually, if we just let go of all that stuff and instead we start to take a long, hard look in the mirror and reconnect with our true identity. Many of us wear, God, so many different badges or so many different hats every day, right? Whether it's mum, HR manager, sister, wife, cooker, chef, cleaner, carer. And actually, this is about put your own name badge on. So I put my Jodie badge on and I look in the mirror and I reconnect with my true identity, the person that I know I was born to be, with all of that potential, all of that latent potential. And I reconnect with that and I do the work on figuring out what I really want, not what I think I should want, what I really want for me and what I desire for myself. And then I shamelessly declare that to the world. And I'm going to do some shameless declaring in a minute. And I take accountability for myself and I make those things happen for me. And I do so not just for me, but in a quest to inspire the next generation, so that they can follow in my footsteps, so that they don't have to conform to any of the biases that we have conformed to, because we'll have created new narratives, new stories for them to be able to live in a very, very different way. Oh, yeah. I'm glad that was one of your biggest takeaways, Louisa. Put your own name badge on every morning. Get your own name badge on. So if you do these things, then that's how breaking gender bias can really, really unlock for many women what we truly, truly desire and allow us to have it, allow us to live the life that we bloody well, will make us happy, that makes us feel fulfilled, and that ultimately we all deserve the success that we all deserve. So I'm going to be shameless right now in declaring what I want, right? And I shamelessly am launching my new app today. So it has gone live in the App Store. So if you're on Apple, it's live in the App Store. If you're on Android, it is live in Google Play. So if you need some help with this, if you need some help to reconnect with your identity, to break free of some of these gender biases, if you need some help to figure out what you deeply desire, if you need some help to be guilt-free about that so that you can shamelessly declare it to the world, if you need some help to make that happen, then this is the app for you. All right. This is the Netflix of personal development for women. So, you know what? Instead of binge watching Peaky Blinders or Emily in Paris or whatever this week's fad is on Netflix, how about you binge watch some personal development for yourself? Although there is a caveat, don't just watch it, you have to implement it as well. All right? Otherwise, it doesn't work. Watching on its own doesn't work. But whether it is with your confidence, your career, mindset, meditation, sex, sleep, menopause, money, assertiveness, anxiety, even personal style, or your pelvic floor, right? We've got everything within the app, and it's constantly having more added to it to help you live the happy, fulfilling, and successful life you deserve. Oh, thanks, guys. Yay! Woohoo! It's exciting. Glad you love it. Take some action. Definitely. Here's the best bit, right? It costs you what Netflix costs you. You can't say fairer than that, can you? So you can subscribe to it on a monthly basis for as little as $8.99. Or if you're worth it, which every single one of you is, you can go VIP and get in on all the live action. So the $8.99 membership gets you access to all of the content that already exists. If you want to participate and have lots of live time with me, and let's face it, who wouldn't? With my resident experts, with our live monthly masterclasses, with our live group coaching every month, then you can do that for less than the cost of your gym membership, and that gym membership that you don't really use, £27 a month, and you're off. Oh, thank you, Rachel. That's really kind. Yay. Hello, Sarah Jane. I'm so happy to see you here. So download it. You can download it right now from the App Store or from Google Play. There's a little bit of introductory content there that you can get for free, a little bit of a taster, and then you can choose either to sign up to the binge watch $8.99 version, or you can come and join us and get in on the live action for £27 a month. Oh, thanks, Nick. That's so lovely to hear. Nick's already in. A number of you are already in. So that's it from me. If you've got any questions, please do feel free to fire away and ask me. I'm going to turn my slides off now for a minute so you can see my face, my lovely, gorgeous, big face. Very big face. I even washed my hair for you today. It's looking nice, actually, isn't it? Check me out. But listen, look, if we can't compliment ourselves, then who can we compliment? So I hope that has been useful for you today. I hope it's brought to life the theme this year of International Women's Day, which is break the gender bias. So get out there today, choose one small action that you can do to contribute towards breaking the bias. Yay, look, Louisa's got it. Oh, you're welcome, Rachel. I'm glad you've enjoyed it. Thanks, Ruth. The icon in the App Store looks like this. There you go. Looks like my book. Okay. Exactly the same. That's my big book, my big version of my book. Did you know that? I'm a number one best-selling author. Getting good at saying that now. Took me a while to get good with that. So yes, I want to know, actually, even if you end up watching this on replay, even if you haven't been live with us, I'm keen to know what's the one small change that you're going to make to break the bias that will make a big difference when we're collectively shifting this culture. I do want to know about that. There you go. Good. You got it. I'm glad you've got it. So yes, have yourselves a fabulous International Women's Day. I hope you're doing something to celebrate, whatever that may be. And I look forward to seeing some of you over in the app at some point. So yes, that's it from me. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. And I look forward to seeing you all soon. See you later. Bye.